As 2019 fades off into the sunset, we have a look at the podcast and a year in review. Welcome to the final episode of the Ultimate Deck podcast in 2019. We're going to keep doing this.
What a year.
It's been a bit of a year.
It's a big one. It's a big year.
Yeah. Podcast not going anywhere. We enjoy doing it and it's been great. So we're going to keep doing it. But this is the final episode before the clock ticks over to 2020. And we're a little bit late putting this up because we were gone.
Yeah.
Having some holidays.
Christmas.
Yeah.
This guy was eating. I was in Calgary.
Forgive us.
Calgary?
Yeah. Calgira.
Calgary.
Should like to call it. I made a great effort. I took like some audio equipment with me home. I was like, I'm going to do this over the holidays and we'll get this podcast up. And then it's just
Drove it around the province for 3 days.
Nobody's waiting for the next episode to come out. They're also with their families. So
yeah,
we'll do it when we get back to the office. So here we are. But today we thought we'd just kind of go through and like we started this podcast a little over a year ago. I think this is going to be episode 58, I want to say. And so we've been doing it one a week. And so we're a little bit past the year mark because we started it in the start of December in 2017, I believe. 2018, sorry.
2018.
So we're a little bit over a year as far as when we started, but this was our first full calendar year of doing the episode. And honestly, those first 4 or 5 episodes we did back in 2018, they were just kind of feeling it out.
Yeah, good warm-up ones. Right? It's definitely a better podcast now.
Yes.
I would have to say. Yeah,
I think we've come a little way. It's fun to go back and listen to your original ones to be like, how did we sound when we first started out? Because I know there's...
Nervous.
Yeah, there's they're not fun to listen to. The audio equipment wasn't the greatest and a lot of breathing and a lot of just learning the ropes.
Now I don't
live,
breathe.
Right? Now I don't
I just talk at it.
I still give big old breaths in the middle of it because that's who I am. But there's a couple guys we know from Regina have started a new podcast called the Above Average Joes podcast. It's all about sports and hockey.
I didn't listen to that yet.
So I listened to one of the episodes and I was found myself kind of analyzing it a little bit. I was like, this is their first podcast. How are they doing? Because we're vets now.
Yeah. Whole year in.
And then it made me think how did we sound our first? Because they didn't sound that bad. I thought they sounded pretty good.
Yeah.
But I was like, how did we sound in our first ones? And the first one was I was in my basement breathing into a mic really heavy.
It was bad. It was like you recorded it on your phone almost.
And I had all this pressure because I was just by myself at that point. So it's you got to fill 45 minutes. You can't stop talking. Just go.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've come a long way.
I grabbed my phone because I was actually going to try and look up how many podcasts we've done, what the actual number was. So Vinyl Guys was episode 57. So this is 58.
Yes. Yep. I had that correct. So that's a lot of episodes of podcasts.
I listen to Spitting Chicklets a lot, and those guys, they intro it every time. This is episode number blah. They have it. They're on point. So,
well, we should start doing that.
Yeah, be as good as Spitting Chicklet guys.
I'll try. So looking back in the podcast, we've done 57 episodes over the last year and a tiny bit. We've had numerous guests on.
I've had quite a few.
We've had quite a few listens here now. We're in the tens of thousands of people of listens, not people, but listens of the podcast.
Yep.
So people are starting to tune in. It's growing.
And that's good. I don't have my family listening, so those are legit numbers.
I can't get my family listening.
Right.
My wife always jokes, she's like, yeah, no, I listen to it. I was like, no, you don't listen to it. You hear it when I put it on the Google Home in the background and you can't wait for it to end.
Yeah.
And turn it off. You've never voluntarily listened to one.
Yeah.
Anyway, we thought we'd go through and go over the guests we've had over the past year and review some of the top episodes that we've had.
Okay.
And just kind of do what we said we were going to do, a bit of a year in review. So
let's do it.
Our first guest ever, do you remember who that was?
No.
Without cheating, we just kind of went over it.
I can't answer it now because I did look at the paper.
Yeah.
So
Our first guest of the podcast was Dustin Winfield from Aztec Carpentry. Yeah. Aztec Decks now.
Aztec Decks, yeah.
Back then it was Aztec Carpentry.
That.
Do you remember that he had, we did the pod, I don't think you were on that one. It was just me and him, I think, right? I think I was in my basement again.
You told me about it.
We've got a studio built now, but it was in my basement. But we didn't know that during the podcast, I'd given him questions ahead of time to say here, because I was super formal back then.
Yeah.
It's gotta have excuse the crack here. That's
holidays.
That's a rock star, not a beer.
Sure it is.
But gave questions ahead of time. we went through the podcast, everything was done. Then afterwards he sent me a picture. He's like, oh man, we forgot to talk about the logo. And I was like, oh, okay. Sorry about that. And he's like, yeah, I had it all written down on my whiteboard here. And that was one thing we missed. And he sent me a picture and he had a whiteboard of like all of his like questions and answers and what he wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
I was like, boy, like he prepared more than I did on that one.
It's so funny too. Cause so it used to be a lot more like that. We used to prepare a lot more. Today, what I rolled in here 15 minutes ago, we jotted some stuff down and here we are.
Yeah.
Seasoned vets.
A lot of it's flying by the seat of our pants, right? We got other stuff going on. It's like, this doesn't take priority until it's time to do it. And then it's like, whoa, what are we going to talk about today?
Yep.
Pull it together real quick. So there's been some episodes where we had to put a lot more effort into it, like the warranty discussions and whatnot.
Yeah.
Had to really get into those ones. But
yeah,
for the most part, it's pretty.
So how do we want to do this? Do you want me to just read off all of the names in order as fast as I can read them?
Well, that would make for a short podcast. Well, I thought we'd go through the guys and give them each a little bit of time to talk here, whatever. But that's what afterwards. So we finished with Dustin. Next guy we had on was Mark King from Infinite Decks.
Beauty.
Mark's a great dude. He had a ton of fun on that podcast. These are all before you joined. I don't know what episode was your first one.
No, I was in on the Mark King one.
Were you with Mark?
Yeah, because I remember we finished that podcast and then I said to you, I was like, man, we have to figure out when we're interviewing people or talking to people when other people can talk or not talk, because like it was just
Are you sure that wasn't with Tim?
I thought it was with Mark.
I thought I did the one with Mark in my basement again. But anyway, so Mark King from Infinite Decks, at Infinite Decks. Great dude. That podcast, I'm just pulling up the stats here because we're going to talk about the stats a little bit as well, but I'm certain that podcast is still our number one rated. So Mark can put that on his resume.
Yeah.
Whatever you're going to do with that information. Just pulling it up to confirm that, but
maybe it was just you and I listened to it when I was out driving around. But
he is the most listened to all time still, December 31st. Yeah, I feel like I did that. It was just Mark and I again, but you were definitely on the Tim Percy one, and that's definitely something we talked about after that. It was like, cool, boy, man. Oh boy, like this got out, and we knew this was going to get out of control. Tim was the next one. Tim Percy from Everything Exteriors was our next guest, and we knew because we had spent some time with Tim down at the Fibron plant.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it was Charlotte. Yep.
Down in Charlotte.
Went to the football game
with the Fibron folks, and we learned on that trip that like a lot of big personalities, and we knew that like we all got along pretty well, and so we're like, this could get out of control if we forget the mics are there and we just kind of like start broing out.
Yep.
And that's what happened. And so then we're like, boy, we should probably like try to keep tabs on these things a little bit tighter. But Tim's a great dude. Everything Exteriors up into Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Lumberyard, essentially.
Similar.
Everything exterior.
Yeah. Similar idea as what we're doing. They do some more exterior stuff, right? They do siding and like stone cladding and stuff. We don't do that. We don't cover that. But
right. Yeah. We're just everything decks.
Everything decking.
Next up was a local pair that we had on that not many people on the podcast would have known about at the time, Justin and Greg. Mm-hmm. And so Justin and Greg were a duo. They often get called a comedic duo or a comedy show kind of thing.
Yep.
And so sadly, they're not really here anymore.
I feel like they're alive.
They both Dave Chappelle'd off to Africa. Nobody's seen them since the podcast.
Yeah.
They're both alive. They're both doing great. But what they were doing at the time is they basically came up with the world's first live Facebook show format, kind of like a late night talk show format kind of thing on Facebook Live.
Yeah.
And two funny dudes, two very smart, but funny, charismatic, fun guys to listen to and watch. And they came up with this format. They started this show and it took off. Like, unfortunately, not financially, hence why they're not doing it anymore. But as far as viewership and the attention that they got and the personalities they built for themselves and the brand they built, like, it worked really, really well. They got a lot of exposure out of this thing. Ended up like international for a few little skits and things that they did, just got like major media attention all over the world in some cases.
Yep.
And they were kind of, they were geniuses at creating attention, creating content for social media. And so we had them on to talk about
how to create that stuff.
Social media for contractors.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So that was a great episode.
It's too
that was
bad
a fun
that they didn't make any money at it. I don't think there's any reason to pull punches with that. That's why they're not doing it anymore.
Yeah, it's too bad that they're not doing it anymore because I always enjoyed it. I always enjoyed tuning into their stuff. and they made some money. They just didn't make enough to sustain two households.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
Part of that's probably because they didn't cash checks.
Yeah.
So we had hired them
business.
prior to the podcast ever happening to do a little bit of content for us one time, and we paid them
Filmed some stuff for us, right?
2 checks. Yeah. And then find out like a year and a half later, our accountant's like, these checks never cleared. We're like, what? Asked them about it. They're like, oh yeah, they're still on Justin's desk. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, that would have helped.
Here you go.
It turns out you were making money. You just weren't cashing it.
Cancel these checks. We'll raise some new checks.
Yeah. Anyway, after Justin and Greg, we had Mark Fisher on from Wolf Home Products. And so Mark, I don't know his official title, but he's the Wolf guy, like the Wolf decking guy,
Yep.
or outdoors, like
Outdoor.
railing, kitchens, etc. But Mark is Wolf being kind of like a smaller, what do they call them? Challenger brand.
Yeah.
They don't have reps in every corner of the continent. And so Mark is kind of a one-man band as far as getting Wolf exterior products out into the market. And so he's our rep. He's lives in Denver,
He lives in Denver.
but Wolf themselves is headquartered in Pennsylvania. Is that right? That doesn't feel 100% right. But anyways, they're somewhere in the Northeast.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Somewhere up in the Northeast. So Mark was on and we chatted about Wolf products and his role and how he got into the industry. And that was a good one. That was the first time we actually had like a rep from up in the industry as opposed to just contractors or people down in the food chain a little bit.
Yep.
So that was a good one.
The boots on the ground people.
That's right.
Less of those, more office guys.
Yeah. And then the legend, Bobby Parks.
Yeah.
We had Bobby Parks on.
We should get him on here again.
We should, because after that first one, he said, boy, I feel like I could talk forever on that. We should do a round 2. And we're like, yeah, we should. So we left him off for the rest of this year. But maybe, Bobby, if you're listening, reach out.
He doesn't listen.
Let's line that up again. I wonder if he even listened to his own.
Yeah. Tag him in it, and then maybe he'll at least notice that it's there. So.
Yeah. So Bobby
he
had
was
volunteered a round 2, and I think we should take him up on that because that dude is a wealth of information.
So
he
smart.
built a lot of crazy projects with attention to detail that people only now are starting to do themselves. Like he did this before it was trendy and cool on Instagram. He was doing some pretty crazy stuff.
Correct.
And he's a wealth of information. Now he's a consultant. Like he has enough information that he now charges just for people to hear him talk about how to do things.
Yeah.
He tours with Versatex and Trex, and
Great.
he's
dude.
a legend in the industry.
Yeah.
And
Everybody likes him.
best kind of guy too, right?
Yeah.
Like just a solid, down to earth, blue collar dude.
Yep.
Good guy. After that, we found ourselves down at IBS back in January, which was in Las Vegas, correct?
Yes.
And by this time, the
Home
podcast
of the old fashions. I think that trip was the home of the old fashions.
was it. Another one of those.
Yeah.
By this time, even before this, podcast was starting to catch a lot of the right ears, and so we got contacted by a couple of the big dogs in the industry, Trex and TimberTech, to say, "Hey, let's do something on the podcast." And we said, "Yeah, why not? Let's do it." So we stopped by the Trex booth, which is a great booth down at IBS. They've always got an impressive display on, and met with the VP of marketing for Trex, Leslie Adkins, and sat down with her for a little bit and kind of learned about the marketing side of the business from Trex. And so
What a juggernaut that thing is, right? It's
Yeah.
such a huge business.
Yep.
And so she markets that. She tells everybody about it. And that would likely be a fun job.
I would think so.
They have a marketing budget that's good. Good size. They have a good size.
Pretty good size. Yeah.
No big deal.
So as somebody myself with a background and an interest in marketing, I thought it was cool to be able to sit down with Leslie and chat about that side of everybody's business.
Yeah.
We then slid across the next day, across the aisle to TimberTech's booth,
Yeah,
AZEK's booth.
Yep.
Also
that one was a big
beautiful
one.
display.
Yeah.
They put some time and effort and money into that thing. It was unbelievable, that display.
It was all really cool, right? So they had a lot of people there. They had Jason and Mark were working the booth, bending deck boards.
Yeah.
They had done the big onion in the middle. That thing was amazing.
Onion was the coolest thing.
They had that wall.
I didn't know what to call it when I was there, but somebody afterwards is like, yeah, it's called the Onion. It's like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool art display made out of AZEK products. Really cool.
And then they did that wall. That
Yep.
was like a multicolored wall.
Second story.
Amazing. They launched the multi-width decking. Yeah. Anyways, That was a good one.
Launched their tape at that show.
Great job.
Yeah, big TimberTech display down there, and we sat down with the director of product management, I believe his title was, Jason Duvall, and chatted with him about the new products and whatnot, mostly
Correct.
stuff that was coming out. So that was cool too.
That was his first podcast.
Yeah, couple guests that brought some insights from, like I said, way up in the distribution channel, like at the top, the manufacturers, where the decisions are made and whatnot. And that was kind of cool to talk with those people as well.
Yeah. Yep.
After that, we got back to Regina. Still didn't have a studio yet, but we did a roundtable discussion with Mike Forflow and Sean Firo from Fibron. And
Right
so Mike,
on their Fibron deck.
on their
actually.
deck. Yeah, special moment.
That was a good one. That was a lot of fun, the way we just stood around and chatted.
It was fun. We just had the mic kind of hanging in the middle, kind of like a boxing announcer, like dropped down from the ceiling. And
Yep.
anyway, those guys. So Mike Forflow he's our Fibron rep, and I believe he covers like most of Western Canada, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so.
And Sean Firo would be his boss, who's kind of like the Canadian account manager of whatever his name might be, but
He kind of
the
covers
Fibron guy in Canada.
He kind of covers out east a little bit more, right?
Right. Yeah. So had those two guys on. Great couple dudes. Best hair in the industry on the top of Mike's head.
Hands down.
There's no real challenge. Well, Bobby Parks. Parks would be a challenger. No, it's still not.
No.
Bobby's a distant number 2. But yeah, great time chat with those guys as well. And then after that, we had, so this year we as a in our own business brought on the Decorators line of decking this year in the Voyage line.
Yep.
And so we were welcomed with open arms into the Decorators family, and Jace DeBoer and Shannon Bertrand, correct?
Yep, I think so.
Hope I got that right.
Yeah.
Visited us in the store, and they thought this would be great if we could be on the podcast and everything too. And we're like, great idea. The last one we did was with a roundtable with the Fibron guys, and this is a super fun format, so let's do it.
Yep.
Yeah, they showed up here with gifts, and Jace is from Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Tons of swag.
And
that was when he landed, and he loved the city because he had looked up the.
He was Googling things to do in Regina.
What was the song?
Experience Regina.
Experience Regina.
He finds his video, Experience
What an
Regina.
awful song that is, but it's so funny.
It's probably 15, 20 years old. So like everybody in Regina is familiar with this little YouTube
it's probably
video.
30 years old. It's going to be
Yeah,
2020, right? It's probably happened in 1980.
Yeah. So there's this video. If you haven't seen it on YouTube, go to YouTube and look for Experience Regina. And I don't know the history of why this video is made. It's like a spoof.
It was tourism.
Was it actually
It was
a
an
real tourism?
actual real tourism video.
And were they trying to be funny? Or was this like a legit,
Yeah.
this is a legit tourism video for Saskatchewan?
Here we go. This is going to be great. And so
Okay.
they did it. And if you look that up, it's possible that you're actually going to find some Justin and Greg info as well, because they talked about it quite a bit, right?
Yeah, they kind of latched onto that and made it relevant again.
Yeah.
Last year. And anyway, so Jace finds this video and he's like, oh my God, you guys, like, this is where you live? I can't believe I'm going to this place.
On my way. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, fantastic.
So it was good. We went to a local beer store, got some t-shirts that have the Experience Regina written on them.
Yeah.
Then we threw some axes. It was good.
At their boards even.
At their boards.
Fun.
Yep.
So that was a great episode. Then and in between all these, we like the whole year obviously hasn't been just guests. We kind of mix it up with sometimes it's guests, sometimes it's educational, sometimes it's just fun, whatever. But after that,
Sometimes it's just you in your basement.
sometimes just me in the basement. Sometimes we're just eating chips on the podcast. After that, we jumped the pond, skipped the pond down to Australia, and brought on Bruce Donegan from Donegan Decking. Had Bruce on, get some perspective from down under.
Yep.
And that was a good episode too. Tapped a new market. We had Bruce listening already, but maybe we gained a few. Actually, Bruce's podcast had very respectable numbers, and I think did bring a bit of an Australian audience to the podcast.
Certainly.
So that was good.
Yeah, certainly did.
And then the guys we had on after Bruce should have happened a lot earlier. Probably these guys are the Brolaws from like Dave and Joey from
Dave
the
and
Brolaws,
Joey.
and we've known these guys. We've never met Joey in person, but we've met Dave in person. But they're just like, we're all from the same pot of peas. Just two of us landed in Saskatchewan and two of us landed out in Toronto.
Yeah, we should do a 23andMe and see how closely we are.
Yeah,
to being
somewhere
related
along
to
the
those
bloodlines.
guys, right?
So, yeah, maybe we're all like sons of Tom Cochrane or something as he toured the country. But anyways, cut from the same cloth. So really fun to sit down with those guys and just kind of do this round table from a distance. Like, I don't think anything got taken too seriously on that podcast. It was just giggles but a lot of industry talk and a lot of background. Interesting guys because they have a bit of a platform. They're on HGTV. So they're, micro celebrities, I would say, some people in the industry would be familiar with them that watch HGTV.
Yes.
And they're still on there with their home to win shows and other things that they're a part of. So fairly cool to have them in the podcast. Next up, we came back local with our buddy Sean Steffen from The Rusty Shovel, which is a landscape shop, similar format to what we do here.
To try and get some more business perspective, right? Small business perspective. And so he operates a shop much like ours, just for landscaping as opposed to decking.
Yeah, and he's a super passionate guy and really big on his numbers, and he's like running business. He's a true bred entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And so it's fun to sit down with him and hear his side of things as well.
And he's got way more experience than us, right?
He's been in the game for twice as long. I think he said like 8 years or something.
10 years.
9 years, something. So we're in the middle of our 4th year right now. And so he's been doing this longer than us.
Yeah.
And so good to see kind of where he is in his life cycle of his business. But yet it's very relatable because we're operating in the same space, same market, same everything, right? Same age, like we're roughly the same age.
Correct.
Like we're probably at least 7 to 10 years younger than he is, but
I look at least 7 to 10 years older than him.
Yeah. I don't even know I think he's actually younger than us too.
He is younger than us. Yeah.
So that was a great one as well. And then what we've commonly coined off the air as maybe one of our most important podcasts we did of the year was having Jim Demery on from.
Do we know whose idea this was? How did this happen?
I'll take the credit. It was my idea. I just messaged Jim.
Yeah.
I had been thinking about it for a long time. I was like, boy, every time I saw Jim somewhere, I was like, I was thinking we should have him on the podcast. Should have him on the podcast.
So the second that you said that out loud to me, I latched onto that. It's like, absolutely do that. It's so important.
And I stewed on it for probably like 3 months before I actually verbally said anything. And then one night I was like, why do I keep thinking about this and not doing it? So I just sent him a message like, Jim, would you want to be on the podcast? I don't even know if you know that we do a podcast, but if you're available. And he's like, yeah, would love to.
Yeah.
So it just happened.
So what is it? What's his business?
He runs a nonprofit called Understand Us obviously the birthplace is in Regina, but he's really starting to gain an audience in Saskatchewan and beyond. And so it's a mental health initiative. He wants to bring awareness to mental health and get people talking about it. And he's doing a great job. Like it's become quite a big brand within Regina and a talking point. And he himself has built a good personal brand around it. And it's getting a lot of people to talk about it every year. I shouldn't say every year because I don't know when this started. It's fairly recent, but the Tim Hortons cookie campaign that chooses a charity to donate their Smile Cookie profits to went to Understand Us this year. And so that was a big initiative too. And so if you live by a Tim Hortons, which you do, unless you're in the States, they're in the States as well, but not people. Yeah, not as much in the States, but and I don't know if they do the Smile Cookie in the States market, but that Smile Cookie was synonymous with Understand Us this year, and so it brought a lot of attention again. And and
I think it's so important, especially with small business owners and like the people that are listening to us, right? To actually address this mental illness, mental wellness, whatever you want to call it, right?
I think it's
a lonely place to be an entrepreneur and a business owner. So
I think it's super important for our audience for 2 reasons. One, because I think there is I don't know the statistics on this, but I think there's probably a high rate of mental, I don't want to say like diagnose issues, but this is a tough business to be in, like you said, and it's lonely and it's hard. It's physically hard. It's mentally hard. It's financially hard for contractors. And so there's the potential there
ton of pressure
for mental struggle. And it's also the industry where you're the least likely to talk about it.
Yeah, because you're all like manly, right?
It's very gruff and tumble, and you're supposed to be manly, and you're supposed to like hit your thumb with a hammer and not cry about it. And like, you're just not allowed to express things. Yeah. And there's a good chance in this business you're working by yourself. So even if you did want to talk to somebody, there's nobody there.
That's right.
And I know I think a lot of people probably feel like they don't want to bring that crap home and burden their wife or their spouse or their family with that. And so they just kind of internalize it and like, it's not good. So I think it's good that
just push it it down deeper.
Yeah.
I think the only
work harder
industry that I've ever been in that was like worse as far as like operate on full testosterone level was when I worked in the drilling rigs.
Yeah.
And that is like,
I believe that.
Yeah. This is everything about it is like strength, right? All the hammers are 20 pounds and it's all just big steel. Everybody's angry and tough all the time.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, there's a lot of industries that could, well, not even industries. It's just like, people.
All people
need to start addressing mental health. So go back and listen to that episode if you haven't yet. It's a great one. After that, we found ourselves down in Louisville, right? I was going to say Baltimore, but
no, Louisville, Kentucky.
So this was
the next old fashioned tour of 2019.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, this one was much more prominent. There's no mistaking that this was an old fashioned tour for sure.
Yeah.
But this was cool because this was maybe where the podcast itself started to really gain some mass traction and awareness, and
I wonder if maybe
people wanted to be associated with it.
Gaining traction already, and maybe you and I didn't know that people were already like people that we knew were listening to this thing.
It for sure was. Maybe this is the one where it was like,
oh wow,
most kind of in your face. It's like, oh, they're going to bring us down and put us up and like invest time in it. Because all the way along, like all these people were on the podcast because they wanted to be. They reached out to us or whatever, and we're like, hey, we'd love to be on the podcast. And I know that even at Deck Expo in 2018, had just started the podcast. Like it was like 2 episodes in, and already people down there were like, hey, love the podcast. And it was like, holy smokes, like there is quite a few people listening already.
Yeah.
And then of course, again, every time you kind of go somewhere, we got a lot of phone calls from like some of the brands were calling us and we're like, what are you guys doing exactly? What's going on here? Like, my boss is calling me saying there's this podcast you guys are doing. What's happening? And all of a sudden
giving out
like,
trade secrets. Stop doing it.
Yeah. So it was like, there was definitely attention all year, but the cool thing with Deck Expo is we got to align with one of the manufacturers and decorators, bring down the podcast studio. They built this thing up, put a like dedicated section of their booth to the podcast, and it was kind of the central focus of their Deck Expo experience was the live recordings of the podcast.
It's awesome.
So that was super fun.
It was a lot of fun.
We got to go down there. And
I'd do that again.
Exactly. It was a great 2 days. It was super fun. We got to go be the micro celebrities and meet people, and it was awesome.
Right. Like after, was it two full days, right? And we recorded 4 podcasts.
4 podcasts. So we were live on the air for probably like, I would say a total of 4.5 hours likely of talking.
Well, one of them was an hour and a half long, right? So we were maybe closer to 5
Could have been, yeah.
Regardless, I know that my vocal cords were tired at the end of that trip. It was like, holy smokes. Because you don't stop talking after the podcast is done. Then you're around the booth.
Then you're starting to talk about it more, right?
Yeah. And so
we had Jace. Jace Tabor from Decorators was the first 2-time guest on the podcast. That happened that weekend. We had him back on to talk about what was new with Decorators. And then we did a little podcast with 3 of the Decorators kind of pros to kind of get their angle on Decorators and whatnot. Obviously, like part of us being at the booth is like, hey, can we do some content around Decorators? And we said, sure.
Absolutely.
We're willing to.
Well, they got some good products.
Helping us come down here and do this, and we're going to support you guys, and we appreciate the support back. So we talked with Joe Hagen from All Decked Out.
Yes.
And Leaf, I don't remember his last Wharton? I don't remember his last name, from Cascade Deck and Fence and Deck. And Sean Collinsgrew from Premier Outdoor Living. We sat down with those 2 guys, and those are 3 pretty big hitters in the decking industry. And so that was a fun little podcast to do. And then we did what I thought was super fun.
Cascade Fence and Deck.
We did a contractor roundtable and said, hey, if anybody wants us to sit down at the table here and jump on the podcast, unprepared for, not planned, let's just open mic this thing and see who sits down. Let's do that for an hour and a half. And so we did. And probably one of my favorite podcasts we've ever done.
It was,
And forgive me, I didn't make a list of who was on there, but it was like Kevin from NFDI, Perfect View Decks, Simon was on there. 3 Leaves LLC, Eric Thoreau, Jason Varney sat down with us for a bit.
Did you list them in here?
I didn't. and I'm for sure missing somebody on that list, but we had, anyways, a bunch of guys sat down and chatted about the industry, and it was fun. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, Varney. We had a cable guy, Quigley.
Did he I don't think he sat down on the podcast, did he?
I thought he did.
Quigley Cable?
I thought he did. He was there all weekend.
He walked by and I shouted at him, so his name is in the podcast. But anyway, so that was super fun, that roundtable one. That did very well too. Like, it was very well listened to, that podcast.
Simcoe.
People liked that form. Oh yeah. How could we get him? Simcoe Dex. So yeah, fantastic time on that one. We got back and we've had one guest since then, because that just happened. Like, we were just down at Deck Expo not too long ago. And then last week, I think it was, just before Christmas, we had Ryan Leslie on from Vinyl Guys.
Yeah, you did that one.
Yeah.
I did not.
And Justin. Justin was with us on that one as well.
Oh, yeah.
And so, yeah, we've finished the year off with Ryan Leslie from Vinyl Guys, who operates a fence and, like, a PVC vinyl fence and deck company in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. So
correct.
Very maintenance-free focused. A lot of vinyl fence they do. They started getting into a lot of vinyl sheet decking as well, but they started to get into actual plank style decking as well. And so that was a good podcast to go through as well. So, and then I mentioned, I think it was on that episode, you weren't on it, whatever, we gave Justin a bit of a sign off, because another big change for us this year is that Justin has moved on to, I'm not saying greener pastures. There's no chance there's a place cooler and funner to work than this. But he had an opportunity that just kind of aligned with his family life balance thing a little bit better, with his wife being a shift worker nurse and whatnot, and 3 kids. And so he's moved on to something that worked a little bit better for his life. And so we appreciate the time he spent with us, both in the podcast and in the store.
Yeah.
But he's moved on. And so now we're looking for a new Justin.
Yeah. Yep.
So
he'll be missed.
That is all the people that we had on the podcast this year, I think, aside from maybe missing somebody that was on the open mic. But we got a little bit of time left, so let's go through what the top episodes have been throughout the year. So if you haven't listened to this, if you got into the podcast late, you might want to go back and listen to these, because they're the most popular ones ever.
Yeah.
Now, there's a heavy skew towards older episodes for obvious reasons. Yeah. When I pull up my stats and say, what are the top 10 most downloaded episodes ever? Obviously, some of the ones that are older and have been up for a year that people have been able to, because this stuff doesn't go away. It goes on the internet and it's there forever.
Forever.
So most of the listens come within the first 3 to 4 weeks on an episode, but people discover the podcast and they go and listen through the whole list or whatever. And so the older ones get more views overall. So should we do this from 10 to 1 or 1 to 10? 10 to 1.
10 to 1.
Got to build it up. We already told people what number 1 was, but
maybe they weren't listening.
So number 10, and this one's cool because we just talked about this one. The Contractor Open Mic live from Deck Expo 2019, episode 51, is the number 10.
Wow.
Most listened to out of 57, and it's the newest on the list by a long shot.
Yeah, it's only a few weeks old, that one.
So people it was posted on November 9th. So that one's only been up for
2 months.
A month and a half.
Yeah.
And so it's already shot up
Fantastic.
To number 10 most popular episode. Number 9 was Why Would You Ever Buy Fibron? So we did a few episodes and we did like, why would you ever buy each brand? Which
those
like
are funny.
The titles were intentional, but it raised like the phone rang a couple times. We're like, what is this? It was like, well, listen to it. We're not slamming anything. It's just kind of a catchy title to piques people's interest. So why would you ever buy Fibron?
Is that called clickbait?
Yeah, that was a clickbait title for sure.
Yeah.
That was posted on February 13th last year. That's the number 9th most listened to episode. Dunning & Decking, a deep dive interview, episode 34, posted in July, is number 8. So that's a good one. Top 5 deck trends for 2019, which we actually posted back in December of 2018. We were trying to be prophetic and Nostradamus like on that one.
Yeah.
That was the number, what am I at here? 7 top listened to episode. Number 6 was Why Would You Ever Buy Trex? And we posted that in February of 2019. And so that's number 6 most listened to. And that we got a phone call on that one.
That one was the one that we got a phone call.
Our rep phone was like, what is this? What are you guys doing? My boss was calling me. What's happening with this? And then they listened to it and they're like, that was great.
It was good.
It's like, yeah, don't worry. Like, yeah, well, the title made our hearts race a little bit. It's like, that was the point.
Perfect.
Number 5, a deep dive interview with Aztec Carpentry's Dustin Winfield.
First guy on.
First guest. Yeah.
First
I think
guest.
we had 2 episodes before you. I think it was episode number 3, if I'm not mistaken. I wasn't giving the episode number in the title back then.
Right.
but I think it was number 3, December 11th, 2018.
Okay.
Also in December on Christmas Eve, like what was I doing? Christmas Eve, I was recording a podcast apparently. I remember doing this one actually. I was sitting in my in-laws basement with a little recorder at a coffee table,
that's right.
recording this on Christmas Eve. Composite versus PVC, all you need to know. And I remember getting a ton of feedback in this one from people too. Like, thanks so much. Like that explained everything I needed to know about the differences. And I, at that time, didn't know that it was going to be that popular of an episode because I kind of assumed most guys would know. They don't know. Not many people are diving as deep into this industry as maybe we are. Like most guys don't care about the specific differences between Fibron's Good Life line and Trex's Select line. Like
They
don't get that deep, right?
Most guys pick a brand and then they install that brand.
They learn what they need to know.
That's it.
Yeah, exactly. So by doing that one, it was like I remember getting a bit of feedback back then because we always thought people really like the interview style ones, and people do. But some people were like, to hell with the interview style. I like the informative ones. Like I learned so much from the composite versus PVC one. Yep. So they all have value for sure.
Absolutely.
So that was number 4. Bobby Parks, a deep dive interview. No surprise there. Was episode 13, posted in February. That was the number 3 most popular episode ever. Number 2, back to the technical ones, was the foundation of every great deck. And so that was posted in January last year. And that was just a chat about different like pile options or how to support the deck underneath, the structure underneath.
Yeah.
The important part.
Yep. Because you can't do the foundation twice.
That's right. Yep. And number 1, drum roll, we already gave it away. Deep dive interview with Mark King of Infinite Decks. And so that was a pretty early one as well, back from December. That was on New Year's Eve, December 31st. I've got to find things to do. And here we are on New Year's Eve again. I've got no plans. So I'll go home and record a podcast.
You're going to put this out? Yeah. Put it up tonight.
Oh, you're putting podcasts up on New Year's Eve again.
Yep.
So
you're not going out tonight?
I'm not going out tonight. No.
Are you going to try and stay awake?
Debatable. Like, this is going to sound sad, but there's a chance I'm just going to be working a little bit tonight. My kids will go to bed, my wife will go to bed, and I'll just stay up and probably work for a little bit. As sad of an existence as that is. And not because I have to.
Do you have the oldest kid today?
No.
Yeah, so that
No, so like come 9:30,
it's over. It gets pretty dark.
It'll be just me. Place. And if I'm tired, I'll go to bed, and if I'm not, I'll probably work.
It's funny.
So, yeah. But anyways, that's the top 10 episodes of the year
2019. Yeah,
great year.
Had some people. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It's not every week is it fun to do this, but it's good. Like
I always have fun doing it. Sometimes it's like
this is episode the topic maybe
58. Like we've had to come up with 58 topics. That's the hard part. And that's where the interview style ones are a little bit easier for us. It takes a little bit of effort to line those up and coordinate with people and get the questions figured out and whatever else. But they're easier because you don't have to think as much about what you're going to talk about when you just get two people talking on the mic.
Yeah, you have to think about half of it, right? You have to we have to come up with some questions, but then ultimately the other people come up with questions as well, whoever it is that we interview.
Yep, that's right.
That's good.
And I would love to continue doing those. So if anybody's out there, and I know throughout the year, especially early on, we had a lot of people send messages and be like, hey, if you're ever looking for somebody to be on the podcast, let me know. I'd be super interested in joining. And I jotted some names down, but I wasn't very consistent with doing that. And so if you want to be on the podcast, but you haven't been yet, or even if you have been, but you got more value to add, send me a message again, and I'll try to do a little bit better job of keeping track of people this year so we can reach out and say, let's get this going here.
Yeah. Or even some ideas, some topics, right?
Yep, there's a lot of that too. Yeah, some people gave us topics, like the warranty one was kind of spurred on by Bruce Dunnigan from Dunnigan Decking. So yeah, sometimes people bring topics to us and we're like, that's a good idea. Sure.
Yeah.
Problem with those is that people, they bring ones to us because they don't want to do the research themselves.
Right.
Means we have to do all the research.
Yeah, but we don't do anything in the winter.
Yeah, that's right. So I know there was one that was like, well, you should do a review of all the top 5 books that contractors should read. And it's like, holy smokes, that means I've got to read the 30 of them to pick 5. Like, I don't know if I can commit to that.
That's a lot.
That's a good topic, but I don't know that I'm capable of that.
Little audio book, and it's just constantly books running. And that's not bad if the narrator is good.
Yep.
But sometimes the narrator is bad, and it's like, man, I would rather not listen to this.
Yeah, because I'm not going to read the book. It'll be an Audible for sure.
Absolutely.
That's the only way to consume books now.
Because I can't read and drive at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So
yeah, we appreciate everybody tuning in this whole year with the podcast. We've been having a blast doing it. Weren't exactly sure what to expect. We had a bit of a plan in mind when we started it, and I think it's played itself out pretty closely to what we were hoping for, but you never know.
We got to set some goals. Right?
So,
we got to set some new goals for this thing.
That's right.
It was our goal for this year was let's get it going.
Just get it started and actually commit to it once a week.
Yeah, and we did.
Let's do that.
Here we are.
Yeah. So, I don't know there's much more to say. We've gone through who we had on. If you're interested in joining the podcast, of course, send a message to at the Ultimate Deck Shop on Instagram or at the Shane Chapman on Instagram is the easiest way to get a hold of us. And that's it. Have a happy new year and say goodbye to 2019, I suppose. Until next
decade.
week. Yeah, it is.
Into a new
It's
one.
done. We're going to a new decade. Thank you, everybody.